Okay, guys, welcome to this morning's Fife Property Show. So, we're going to be talking about today about the buy-to-let trend and working from home, tapping into that trend to boost your rental property's income and actually occupancy rate as well and return as well. So, what am I talking about when I talk about boosting income, return, and occupancy rate? So, I've got Lettings Director on here, Richard Cook, to talk about that as well.
Morning,
How are you this morning, Richard?
Great. How are you?
Absolutely brilliant. I mean, this is a really quite on-trend subject right now.
I think
But it's actually applicable to us as well, because I mean, when we were in lockdown and all the rest of it, we were all working from home. You know yourself as well that I've been working home for my whole life, basically. I've run my business from my home as well. Even when I was working as a financial controller and financial director in the industry, I've always run my business from my home. And I talk about my business, my side hustle. as if it's a side hustle, eh?
Do you know, I think that you've always said to me, Jim, that the business that we work in, it had always be done remotely. Do you know what I mean? You're going away next week and you've got stuff planned, and obviously, but you'll be able to do whatever you need to do from afar, and we could do that remotely. But I think the last 2 years for everyone, it's just become so apparent how easy it is to work remotely, because we didn't have a choice through lockdown and things, and it changed our perspective on how that working kind of system worked. You didn't have to be in the office all the time. You could do it from home. You could do it from abroad. You could do it anywhere, really.
Well, what proved it to me was, I remember when I first started in a estate agency, and I went out to Spain for my holiday, and I sold a house when I was sitting on the beach.
Yeah.
And I could not believe that. 35 Hogarth Drive. I actually sold it when I was sitting on the beach to the buyer. I was negotiating with them on the phone, and the deal was done. And I just send everything in an email, send it on to the team, job done. I could not believe how simplistic that was. And then we took it to the next level. We ended up negotiating a deal on base camp at Everest.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And then we took it to the next level. Kilimanjaro was next. And then we took it to the next level. And then we were like, so I was like, well, I'm going to prove that you can sell a house on Christmas Day. You can sell a house on, on New Year's Day, which I did this year as well. 1st of January, I sold Kip Wind in Crail while I was on the phone. And guess what? Everybody else was shut.
So do you think that day when you sold that property on the beach in Hogarth Drive, do you think that's the day the penny dropped, or were you always expecting that to transpire to be like that in the future?
Because I was heavily involved in industry and manufacturing, as I said, as a financial controller at the time, it was taking up all my time. So I really had to develop systems outside of that, so I could actually run my buy-to-let business, my investment business outside of the normal day-to-day routine. So everything was really systematized and computerized from the very beginning. I remember actually just typing out a Word document and sending it via a fax card. So that's how old that was. You had a fax card in your actual, and I couldn't believe it. I could actually fax this direct from my worktop on my Word straight to the council. So I wouldn't need to, because email really wasn't that far advanced yet. They weren't accepting emails, but they would accept a fax. And I was like, okay, how can I get a fax? Type it out, fax card, and fax it to the council. So it was easy to do these sort of things. And then that just, you had to do that. It was either that I was never going to do anything outside of what I did in my normal day-to-day. And we know yourself, you know yourself, and I know myself. It's like, your day-to-day job provides for your living. What you do outside of that provides for your lifestyle.
Yeah.
I mean, can you believe the actual average UK employee now spends 1.5 days a week actually at the office?
I could, but it's because we've got a working system that could allow that. And I think it's changed so much that it's amazing though to think everybody was 9 to 5, 5 days a week, and it's just changed so much.
Unimaginable a couple of years ago, though. Before that, it's now abundantly clear that the way we work has changed forever. I think it really, I mean, I'll be honest, it's one of the good things that's actually come out of what just happened. Because it's actually en masse. I always believe that if everybody does it en masse, then it will change as a trend. And that will be like working life forever, or that's how things will go, because everybody's proved it to themselves, even the employers. But nobody wants to be the trailblazer, because if they're the trailblazer and it goes wrong, trailblazing costs you money. The pioneers are the people that end up paying the most money because they're pioneers. They paved the way for everyone else to follow. So I'm never a one really to say I'm going to be the pioneer at something. because I've realised in the past I've seen so many people actually be the pioneer or be the trailblazer, and they've actually lost a huge amount of money investing in these systems. And then somebody like me just comes along and goes, "Oh, I'm going to use that system." and I've not paid a penny for it. and they've developed the whole thing for me. So that's kind of how I look at things. It's taking something that works already and making it more efficient. I mean, as I said, it's unimaginable a couple of years ago. Now it's abundantly clear that the way we work has changed forever. So with the new era, put my teeth in, of flexible working spells, good news for landlords, with a chance to increase your income of your existing rental properties. Well, what do we mean by that? Well, government figures confirm that hybrid workers are more likely to be high earners, which makes them an audience well worth targeting.
Yeah, I think in that working professional part of the market, definitely obviously spend so much more time working at home, and that is what they're going to need. They're going to need that space, so that's what they're going to look for.
Yeah, more and more people are working remotely, including those looking at property to rent in Fife. Everyone accepts makeshift arrangements during lockdown, from Zooms on the couch to laptops on the stairs. But tenants are now prioritising their health and well-being. Today's homes are being scrutinised for how they'd be suited for double duties, with high demand clearly for defined workspaces. So whatever size your rental property is, this is what we're going to talk about today, your guide on how to maximise the performance of your investment, even to the point of actually putting a wee desk in a corner area of the living room, isn't it?
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, tried it myself through lockdown, and obviously, but there's so many areas that you can utilise, and whether you've got a lot of space, you've got a lot of extra rooms, or whether you're quite limited on space, and I think people were looking at how they used the living spaces throughout lockdown, and then they're looking at it now as well, because this trend of working from home has obviously continued, and it's become the norm as such. And we did see a really big spike in that in Fife. We had a lot of people coming out of the cities who didn't have to travel in Edinburgh and things and work every day of the week. They could only go in maybe a couple of days a week, and were looking for property that allowed them to work from home. And then it says about their health and well-being. A lot of people were using the time, so when they had their break in the middle of the day, go for a walk, clear your head, come back to your desk. Do you know what I mean? That's a lot better way of working, and kind of like for your mental health and things as well. A lot of people think that obviously walking's one of the, well, I think so personally, and I know you do as well. To go out and walk and clear your head and come back's just the best thing to do.
Walking is perfect thinking time.
Yeah.
I tell you what, when you go out for a walk, or you go out for a run, or you go out for a cycle, or you go out swimming, or do anything apart from your normal day-to-day stuff, you think you actually switch off. But what it does is it takes out the micromanagement of your brain, and it actually takes you into that microsphere. In other words, you see a bigger picture, and you begin to see how everything's going to fit in that whole context. In order to we're almost getting into a wealth creation show here.
It does give you a clearer perspective on things when you have a walk and just get rid of all the excess noise and think clearer.
So it's important as well when you've got a rental property to actually have a good area where actually things like that can actually happen for people. So I always say it's like you could work at home remotely, and then I tell you what, just for your lunch, you could pop down the beach, and then you could pop back into the house and start work again. I mean, can you do that in a city? No. You can't do that in Glasgow. You can't do it in Edinburgh. You can't do it in London or any place like that. You can't just pop down to the beach. Let's talk about, we touched on this thing about desks and making sure, before you start to wonder which room might take a desk, have you thought about the entrance hall or the landing? These can provide a perfect spot for workspaces to physically separate you from the living areas. I often see that. Do you see that when you go to the top of stairs and stuff like that? You think, there's a big, huge space which is completely empty.
A lot of extra space. Yeah. Do you know, it's interesting that we talk about halls and hallways. Obviously, it's amazing how they could actually be utilised as a completely other functional room. And I met a lady through the week there, I think it was Wednesday. Mary, you might be watching. Hi, Mary. She had a property and she's let it before, and the entrance hallway was it was huge. You come in and there was a bit for coats and jackets and things, and then she had a tenant in there before. They had their sewing machine in one corner, they had a desk across there, and it was a multi-purpose functioning room in addition to the rest of the house. And it wasn't a big massive house, it was a 2-bedroom flat.
I've seen
So
some
it
halls
was
actually
perfect.
dining rooms.
Yeah, and you could have a table and chairs and things in it. Yeah.
So, what sort of things should your rental property have, potentially have, that you could turn into spaces that you could use?
Well, like we say, a wide square entrance hall with
Hmm.
enough room for like a desk, or like I've just said, without blocking obviously the actual entrance or exit.
Yeah.
And like I say, what I just used as an example, this person had their sewing machine and a desk either side, plenty of room still to get in. Under the stairs is a popular one, the cupboard under the stairs or the recess, get a desk in there and things and use it. These can be obviously tucked away as a workspace and can then be closed off. So obviously like with a screen or the door or whatever, and be a
Yeah.
separate space. And like you
Well,
say, Jim, the upstairs landing is a good one. And many have space originally designed for maybe like a wardrobe or a unit at the top of the stairs, and it will equally fit well for a desk.
yeah.
And usually there's a skylight or a window there. I think it's important to have light. I mean, I'm in my spare room just now. I'm not in the studio, and I've
Yep.
got the window. I've got the window, and I'm looking out and things. So I think if you're going to be there for any great length of time, it's
Are
good to
you
have.
telling me you don't have a purpose-built newsroom?
But yeah, it's good to have natural light and things as well.
You know, I mean, I've told the story often where I first started in my accountancy. It was actually, I studied under the stairs. I
Yeah.
literally took the cupboard under the stairs, which you could just walk into, and it was square, like 1 meter by 1 meter, and then the coombe went down under the stairs, which was the upstairs flat. And then what I did was I just channel lined it, and I put shelving around it. I put a desk on it, and I got my computer in it, and I literally got the chair in it, and I was able to close the door. And that was literally it, where I first started for studying for accountancy.
Yeah.
And then all the books sat on the shelf all the way around. And if I needed to get into something at that time, I would just take a book out and I would start writing.
Yeah.
But literally, that's where I first started when I first started out. So I see how that's really, really simplistic, and that was late 80s, early 90s. So you know, I've been utilising spaces like that all my life because it's just so cost effective. It's cost effective for your house as well. I mean, if you can have a wee space like that, even if you're selling or buying, and if you can have a wee space like that, why would you need an extra room then? Because often people jump in and say, I need to buy an extra room. And it's like the extra room could end up costing you another, what, 20 or 30,000 pounds.
Yeah.
But it's like, do you really want to spend another 20 or 30,000 pounds if you're just trying to look for an area to work on? And these are classic areas you can actually work on. As I say, grossly underutilized is the entrance halls and the upstairs landing.
Upper landings,
Yeah, every single time. Even under things like combed ceilings, where you've got the Velux, and usually under there, because you can't really stand up in there, but you can get a desk in there so you can sit there.
Yeah, natural light. And like I say, don't forget the experience of working in an area. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to spend their days crammed into like the Harry Potter style cupboards. So you need to think about how you can create an enjoyable and productive space. Through when we first went into lockdown and things, Jim, I've got a walk-in cupboard. I don't know if you remember, and I created that into a wee office space. But it was basically in a cupboard. I've obviously upgraded now to the spare room,
Got to
but
start.
but you can use them. But just always think about how many hours or how long you're going to be there, and what that kind of effect's going to have on you. But then you always have that option, like you say, to get up, go and walk down the beach. Angela's joined us this morning. Morning, Angela. Angela says that her son has a hybrid job, becomes a new dad, and he walks down Leaving Beach with the pram. Obviously, he can split up his day, work, and obviously spend time with family and things as well. So that kind of dynamic of how to work and keep yourself obviously active and your brain active outside obviously what you're doing just for your job is very important.
So leveraging the living room is a classic example as well. I talked about sticking something in the corner. I mean, it's almost the biggest spaces in your house. The living room has the most potential to host a desk. Sometimes it's the only option. But living rooms are central to enjoying some domestic downtime as well. So, you know, I've kind of put together in my head about some guidelines for workspaces that takes a backseat when the working day is done.
Yeah.
So maybe classic examples of that are choose an alcove or a corner where there's a power socket. Almost potentially, I would say as well, maybe think about getting a fold-down desk in a corner.
Yeah, that's a good space saving thing. Yeah.
Because you know what I mean. You just fold the desk up and then put the support underneath it out from the wall. So if you really want to utilize that, and possibly it's, I don't know, but maybe it's at the back of something, so you can just pull it out and just use it when you need it. But if you need it all the time, it's obviously going to possibly have to be a permanent fixture. But it is a good way to do it. And make sure there's a power socket nearby as well, because you didn't want something running all the way around. A space behind a sofa. We touched on that a wee bit, just as I'd said that. I gave a wee hint to that, or an armchair that would face, so the desk is out of sight after work.
So if it's sat behind the sofa, then you're not going to see it when you're not using it. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to encroach on the actual living space.
Maybe some of the better advice as well: paint a workspace wall in a separate colour, just to give that visual separation between the living room and the working area. It's almost so easy just to gravitate towards your work. I know most people out there maybe go, "What are you talking about?" but it is simple. You know, I don't know about you, Richard, but I find it really easy just to grab my laptop and sit and work away while the television's on in the background, and then just do something while I'm listening to that in the background. Often it doesn't go down well with Elaine, but needs must.
It's true what you say, though. But you talk about alcoves and corner spaces, and a lot of like ex-local authority properties and things always have this like recessed area, or they'll have the alcove in the corner and things, and they're perfect spots where you could have something set up. I mean, if you're going to need to use your living space, if that's the only space you've got, I mean, then utilize that properly, and you could have it set up so it is a separate area, but you could obviously then still have your living area in that room as well.
One step further, the drop-down desk, as I said. Choose a spot where it's shown potential tenants, how easy it actually fades into the background. That's another thing as well. Make sure it's not intrusive. It doesn't look out of place. And it can be hidden behind furniture if you really need it. But even though it's never ever used, it's just another additional add-on to the value of what you can create with your rental property.
And people might think, how's that going to add value? But if people come in to a property and see that, and this is, and like, that space would be perfect for me, then that's going to appeal to them, and it's going to want them to obviously take the property even more. So then that's where the added value is, because they're going to pay more for it to get that space where they could utilize for their work.
What's your thoughts on using the kitchen?
The kitchen, I mean,
because I often get thrown out of the kitchen. I mean, I remember
the kitchen's a really busy place.
We used to have this. We used to have this every single time where Elaine used to come to me and say, where am I going to put the tea? Because I was sitting at the kitchen table and I had everything set up, and it was a wee bone of contention. It's like, well, I need to finish this because you know what I'm like. I just need to finish it. I can't leave anything unfinished. And leave it till the next day. It's like, well, let's get it done, let's get it finished, let's get it out of the way, because a new day tomorrow, a new set of challenges will come. So you know, it was a bone of contention. So is there still opportunities for the kitchen?
Yeah, I mean, kitchens are really usually the hub of any home, really. Kind of like cooking, washing, people making coffee, doing like the usual things, and kitchens are like the most dynamic room. To get things done, like you say, obviously making the dinner, and obviously, especially if you've got a family and kids and things, which makes them a natural fit for a working home. But obviously, like you say, sitting at the dining table and things. But there is options to utilize that better, and maybe that's extending maybe existing work surfaces and worktops, maybe installing a breakfast bar. The breakfast bars obviously maybe not, they might not fit in every kitchen. You do get slimline ones and things that are only like the 30 centimeters deep.
But this is where I've seen so many times, Richard, that people have got the fold down breakfast bar on the wall. So they fold it down, and then they just put the arm out, and it supports it, and it's easy enough just to sit there with a couple of stools and just actually work on a laptop while you're there. It just makes it so much more simpler, and it's a really good use of space. I mean, often, you know yourself, most of my kitchens now, rather than galley style, I'm changing all the galley style kitchens to L-shaped kitchens.
To the L shape, yeah.
And it just gives a huge amount of activity space. Not that you'll want to do dancing or ballroom dancing in the kitchen.
No, you've got room to put a table or things in.
But it just gives you something. It just gives you that bigger feeling rather than being completely enclosed. And it still has the right amount of cupboard space and the right amount of and ergonomically laid out as well.
Yeah.
The typical L-shaped kitchen from the top corner of the L should be the washing machine underneath the drainer of the sink. It goes along to the top, and so that's there facing the wall. The windows are off to the side here, down here. So you've got the washing machine, you've got the sink, and then you come down the way, and then halfway down you've got the oven, hob, and extractor, and then just a wee bit further down, you've at the very end, you've got the freestanding fridge freezer.
Yeah.
And it's a perfectly ergonomically layout because you've got workspaces either side of your cooker.
Yeah.
And then you've got your fridge freezer here as well, where you can just get something to the fridge freezer onto the workspace for preparation, onto the cooker, and then onto the plate and up on the other side as well. And then you've got a microwave in the bottom corner, probably your kettle in the other corner. So it's just that perfect layout, and as well, rather than galley style kitchens, which cost an absolute fortune in terms of the number of units you've got to get, it's actually cost effective to actually build a kitchen like that. It's a lot more cost effective, but it just gives you a lot more space as well. And then you have all the cupboards up the top as well, and then round the corner. So it does make a really good space utilization. I know we're getting away from the home office thing, but then it allows you then to have that space to possibly have that fold-up breakfast bar with the 2 stools, and you can just sit and have your breakfast there. Rather than having in most flats, is you have to sit with a tray and sit on the couch, which isn't a great thing, eh?
I think, and the thing now as well, I mean, in the past, home offices consisted of, do you know, when you had a lot of equipment, you had a tower, you had obviously a monitor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just need your laptop and a webcam if you're doing what we're doing just now. You don't need all this additional equipment. So you can just sit at your breakfast bar, or you could sit, as long as you've got enough space for laptop, paper, whatever you're working with.
I never thought about that, because the advent of Wi-Fi as well, your printer could sit somewhere else in the house, so you don't actually need to have all that kit and caboodle with you as well. Not like the old days. I know it. Not like the old days where you had it was like a suitcase.
Yeah.
Effectively, you were taking around with you, and then. I mean, basically, this is more powerful than what the original computers were like. This is more powerful than what was originally put on the moon in terms of computing power.
Yeah, you've got a lot in your hand and in front of you on a laptop. I mean, laptops are this thin now, so you don't need a vast amount of space. So yeah, these fold-up work surfaces and things and tables are brilliant. Another natural advantage from kitchens is obviously they've got, like you say, a lot of built-in cupboards and things, and this gives tenants the perfect hiding place for things like printers and paperwork and stationery. So you could have a designated cupboard close by. Like I say, my printer's in the cupboard behind me, and when I want to print it, I open the cupboard and I get whatever. So yeah, and then you have clever storage solutions, which will not upset the design of the rest of the kitchen. You could just utilise one of the cupboards.
That's a great idea. I never even thought of that, about actually putting the printer in a cupboard.
Yeah.
So it's out the way. Yeah, and it's no intrusive either. And when guests come in as well, it's no as if it's no out of place because it's hidden.
Yeah.
Okay, so kitchen wise, so we've talked about the kitchen, we've talked about the hallway, we've talked about the living room. What other advantages do we have? I tell you what is a really good one. I tell you what is a really good one, and you'll probably know what's coming, is the box rooms.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you see that now, Jamie Anderson Place I've just put on the now. Now they've taken their box room and they've actually incorporated it back into the kitchen. And actually it's like a dining kitchen now. So that's where that box room's actually been perfectly utilised. But often you go into some of these box rooms or these big massive cupboards. You get the big walk-in cupboards and you kind of think, God, I could fit another bed in here. But the reality is they don't have a window, or the window's too small to call it a bedroom. So it's sometimes an undefined area, and it's not actually got any purpose in the house. And I think it's like what we spoke about in the beginning. The box rooms are actually, it's all about thinking inside the box room rather than outside the box room, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's all about looking at it. And I think not so long ago, plenty of landlords and things, when they were looking at properties, or anybody looking at properties, they saw homes where one of the bedrooms were so tiny or really quite small, which weren't quite a double, but they were just a single. They just thought that obviously single tenants and things and couples didn't want to pay the extra rent for a room that really they're not going to use. And I think now that room is ideal because people actually look for that extra. We'll call it a box room, but I would probably say because you've got a reasonable single room, and it's just ideal to put the desk in and use it for working from home.
You get the classics as what would be is the typical box room. It's got that cupboard with half it missing at the bottom because it goes over the stairs.
Yeah,
you get what I mean, and that's probably the ideal place to put the printer, and all your stationery and everything like that as well in that cupboard, as well as possibly put shelving throughout on the sides for any books or workspaces or any files that you need filed away cleanly, so they're not sitting on the floor, so they're not in your space, and then stick a desk right underneath. So again, you're utilising that space underneath the shelves, which you wouldn't be standing at anyway. So you're getting that desk in it there. So again, you've got more activity space in the centre in order to work on other things, and potentially you could possibly get 2 people in there quite comfortably, possibly back to back, one on either side. Or even 2 together with the shelves behind them, but facing each other. I'm not really sure about couples if they want to face each other every day and then have to put up with each other at night. Sometimes getting away to your work is a bit of respite for some people.
Yeah, but I mean, now because you've got a lot of working professionals and things, I meet quite a lot of working professionals and they need that space. But it tends to work that, like I say, we're still doing days in the office and things. The days in the office obviously are different. So the days at home, but they still need their separate workspaces where they've got their stuff and things. So
tenants, now there is a new wave of tenants that definitely want their dedicated workspace and who don't need that extra double bedroom. And this box room has multiple benefits that actually include that then. Potentially attracting wealthier tenants like consultants, practitioners who need a private room or who work perhaps for visiting clients, removing the need for other rooms to double up on duties and preserving their intended purpose. So that's like, you don't want it in the living room, you don't want it in the kitchen, you don't want it in the dining room, you don't want it, all these places. So that's perfect for that opportunity. And as I said, for even these walk-in cupboards, because yourself, I think it's you see them up in St Andrews. I can't remember seeing them in Cooper. You can definitely see them in Leaven up the Broom, where you've got these big, massive cupboards. And I often walked into these properties and thought to myself, God, if you'd planned this blooming property out right, you could have got another bedroom out of this.
Got another room in it.
With the amount of floor space that's been used here, but it's actually not been used properly. So it's now coming back to the case that these areas are actually ideal for this. So they've come into their own fruition here over time, and just they've actually helped. This has actually helped define their purpose. So keeping that office physically separate from home life and hidden away behind the door until it's actually time to work. Often, as I said, I'll come back to saying that because it was so, it's like out of sight, out of mind, isn't it? If it's out of sight, you don't tend to keep focusing on what you need to do. But if it's in sight all the time, you kind of think, I'll just check my emails. I'll just do that. You know what it's like, Richard. You're sitting on your phone. That's probably the worst thing. I'll just check my emails. I'll just make sure the socials are updated and everything's all right. And it's so easy to do that, but it doesn't give time for anybody to switch off. Therefore, it does affect them. They don't think it does, but it does affect them, and it becomes more stressful because it is literally like a story I talk about taking time out to sharpen your axe. You because you're going all the time. It's like someone running marathons and then they run the ultra marathons. It's like at some point in time you will have to take a break in between because your body will eventually give up. And at some point in time you have to take a break out of your work because your mind will eventually give up. And that's why people suffer so much of anxiety, depression, stress, and all these different things, because they don't realize that, you know, myself included, they are actually only human, and they need to switch off into something else at some point in time, or it will literally drive them crazy.
Yeah, definitely.
So what's one of the other benefits of the box room? They cost less to heat, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to. I mean, if you're spending a considerable amount of time in the day in this room, then it's not going to.
I would argue that didn't even cost anything to heat at all, because your laptop does it for you.
Well, that's true.
Sometimes sometimes I always remember I used to walk into the room. I mean, it's no great because obviously you've got the fan and everything going, so you need some sort of, make sure you've got aeration coming in from the outside, because you do get that, I can't remember what they call it, the ozone sort of stuff from your computer that comes out. You do need to have some sort of good ventilation to make sure you get the right oxygenation to your head and your brain,
in order for you to function and do what you're doing.
It helps you function and think better. But often when you do walk into one of these rooms, it's like, wow, it's warm in here. It's like you don't really need that. So probably the huge advantage is you don't need to heat a big huge room, because your normal day-to-day working and your computer running as well and your printer running as well will actually probably do that for you with the amount of energy it pumps out in terms of the heat. If your rental property has a smaller single bedroom or a wee box room, make sure the description actually shouts out about its suitability for the home workspace when you're actually putting it on any website or doing any videos for it.
Yeah, it's so important in the description to actually point out these types of things, like things that are going to appeal to people. Like if you've got a target audience, like maybe the working professional, like you were saying, consultants and practitioners and things, if you've got this room that's going to be ideal for them to work out of, even to use as maybe a consultation room, or do you know what I mean? Demonstrate that in your listing, and then people will pick up on that, and people will pay more for that as well, because it's what they need for their business to function.
Yeah. What's the next thing you need to think about? Would you take it outside from now on?
Yeah, I think that the big one that was so popular through lockdown and things is taking things outside. And I think, given that, I mean, we've got less than a tropical climate here, but tenants aren't always, and most tenants aren't always that most motivated, like obviously looking after gardens and mowing lawns and things. But the garden room really come into its own through the last couple of years. And it can really add the wow factor to your property and provide that luxury workspace outside. And also, it could significantly increase the sale value of your property as well. You get some really, I mean, some of the prices, some of them are crazy, but you get some of these, I say mid-range, but reasonably priced ones that are amazing, and they will add quite a good value to your property. I mean, most gardens rooms are considered.
So you talk about adding the sales value to the property. They will add the sales value. The difficulty here is, in Scotland, we've got home reports, and the difficulty about the home report is the surveyor can't actually take a non-fixed, like a sun house or something like that,
value.
Outside.
The value only comes.
He or she can't include it in the value.
No, but the value only comes when people see it as an addition that they want for the property, so they're prepared to pay more for it.
So it's ideal for a rental property, isn't it, to create another space for somebody that's a home office. So while it won't add value to the bricks and mortar of the building, it will add significant value in the mind of the tenant. Therefore, they might actually pay a premium for this type of property because it's got that added value to it, and you've got a fully insulated unit. I mean, I've seen some of these units and home offices out the back cost about £10,000 or £20,000.
Yeah,
like wow.
Yeah, they can. I mean, 20 grand is quite a lot to be paid, but then I have seen that, and that they are amazing. But
then when you look at the 20 grand and you look at the average price point in London, it's 505,000. Is 20 grand really that significant in the scope of things for that extra room?
No, and we've seen, I mean, we've done a few over the last couple of years that was sold that people have put them in place. I think there was one in Kennedy that rings a bell with me, and they got way over because people wanted the outside space. I mean, it wasn't an office; it had a pool table and it had the games machine in the corner and things. But that's what they were paying the extra for, because people wanted that, although it wasn't reflected in the actual, like you say, home report value. There is things to remember. Obviously, there is restrictions and things. I think it's 2.5 meters height, without obviously having to get obviously for restrictions for planning and things. So always bear that in mind, and I think be mindful of neighbouring properties and things. I've heard a lot of disputes happen over people putting up these summer houses or garden rooms and things.
Yeah, I mean, it is important to do that because you know, potentially you could end up putting that garden room up and then somebody's views blocked as a result of it. So, you know, I kind of think you have to be mindful of your and you could say, well, it's permitted development. I'm allowed to do it. You know, it's only a shed, but it's just the very fact that you know, just be mindful. That's the word I'm looking for. Mindful of the people round about you that actually enjoy that in space with you. Remember, your shed's maybe only there for a certain period of time, but the house is there forever. And so potentially is your neighbour as well. So you kind of need to get on with them, especially if there's something you've got maybe common ground that you've got to maintain together. For example, gardens. For example, hallways. For example, maybe parking. All these different things on the new builds nowadays. You've got communal spaces which are actually factored by other people. So it is about being mindful. I mean, given the less tropical climate as well, you know, you're probably going to have to make sure that that you know, these garden rooms are actually really good, well insulated,
and watertight, yeah. I mean, you get quite good ones. I mean, there's like B&Q does a lot of good ones, and you know, other specialists like obviously stores and things do quite and reasonably priced ones as well. I mean, we're talking about obviously the 10 and 20 grand ones, but there is ones that are at the lower end, but they're more summer houses, which could be then utilised as an office.
Could you be tempted just to strap and board the inside with insulation?
You could do that.
I'm not sure how if anybody out there knows or has done this. I'm not sure how that'll affect things, because obviously you're then creating you need to create a proper vapor barrier, but then would that rot the wood inside, because you've got the condensation inside that cavity you've created with the stuff in there. So I'm not sure if that would be adequate for doing that. But I suppose it's all about checking out on YouTube and stuff like that and see if anybody else has done that before as well.
Well, my friend's done it. They got a 22 foot garage, and it's all been insulated, lined roof. It's a bar. It's basically a mini pub, but brilliant. And they've done it all themselves. They put windows in, they put electrics in, and it's quite amazing actually. But yeah, and that was just an old garage that they got and built and put it all together. So it can be done at a cheaper level, obviously, than like say the 20 grand mark. But
because I just look at 20 grand and think that's another deposit on a house.
Yes, got to say that's another investment.
I could buy another house and get and get a better return on that than actually spending 20 grand putting out in the back for somebody to live in or somebody to use as a home office. So if it's there already, I kind of think it's a great addition. I'm no advocating run out and do that, because to me, buying something like that's a depreciating asset, because it does wear and it's no bricks and mortar. So I'd be more inclined to actually say to someone, if you're taking something outside, then build an outbuilding rather than actually spend 10 to 20,000 on actually a timber build. I would definitely probably consider putting an outbuilding in, a proper bricks and mortar one, because that then will add significant value to the property. It will also allow you further lending as a landlord and investor, because that's part of the property now, and it's bricks and mortar. And then it will also allow you. It won't rot as much. You know, it'll stand the test of time. It'll be there forever. You'll have less maintenance than you will on a timber build. Therefore, it will add more value as well overall to the tenant.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that's probably one to go for.
Yeah, I think either way, whether you do the like I say, like the bricks and mortar fixed actual structure, or whether you do a shed or even just one of these garden rooms, always remember that you're going to need to connect to electricity. You're going to have some sort of heating system or insulation in place. You're going to have to get the right people to do that correctly as well.
A box extension from the main house to go into there, done by a proper electrician with proper switch points and fuse box. And proper, I think it's 6mm core cable coming out, electrical cable for all that. So, you know, that will have to be done, and it'll have to be signed off as well. Because remember, I've got a health and safety duty as well, duty of care,
Yeah, I think
to make sure that's all signed off.
That amount of additional electric being used, I mean, didn't have just, oh, my friend knows how to do that, let's connect it up to the house, and no, because that could be a bit of a disaster.
Genuinely, I've often seen some people just run a cable across the top,
yeah,
out in the open. Just go, that's electrics, and I go and I say to them, so where's the fuse box? Oh, right, it's just for the house. It's just an extension from the house. I went, well, I can't say it's got electrics in it then, because it's no legally compliant.
One thing it does bring into question for me, and I think a lot of people who have put these summer houses / offices or garden rooms and things in place is obviously we've got the increasing costs of utilities and things, and how is that going to affect their overall bills at the end of the month? If they're running these, if they are using them all year round. So that'll be something to see.
So I think that's more important then to say take it inside, but outside is an alternative if it is actually the last resort. Garden rooms are estimated to add at least 1.5 times their cost to your property. Well, they can, as I say, in England, they won't here, because obviously we've got home reports and that's based on bricks and mortar. But if it's bricks and mortar you're building for a garden room, then happy days. Or if it's an extension off the back of the house, it's been built already, then you could use the extension off the back of the house, which is the garden room. Probably a classic example recently is Southcroft. I've just put on in Links Road. That's got a garden room off the back. It's got a laundry there as well. They've put a laundry in there. And you can easily take that out. Or you could just leave the laundry there, and you could just have a home office in the back, and then it's just opening right out to the back garden. So then, if you just have a wee bit of challenging time on the phone, you could just open the doors, walk out the back garden,
take 5,
and then just walk back in, and then you're back to work again. You can't do that in the city.
No. And I think
that's probably the big advantage about living out in places like we have here in Fife. And the fact that it's easily accessible to all the different countryside locations and potentially the beaches as well.
Yeah, but like you say, even just to walk in your back garden here, it's still quiet. You could still find that 5-10 minutes a piece just to kind of recalibrate. And then, do you know what I mean? If you had an outside space and you're in the city, you go out, there's probably a lot of exercise noise. So I think that's the appeal, and Fife's got that appeal because it's in close proximity to the cities, and it's got quite a dynamic, diverse kind of. We've got the beach, we've got the outside spaces, but we're close to the city, and I think that's what the appeal. I know that's what the appeal of Fife is.
Yeah. Cheaper option, as you said, would be the larger garden shed or summer house where the electricity can be run by the expert to complete the final finishes and the installations for yourself. You'll save on the cost, but remember the added value to the property will be lower as well, and your added value for possibly what you can get in terms of the rental return could be better as well. I'm going to we've not talked about it in this article, but I'm going to talk about bathrooms.
Yeah.
Yep. Home office and a bathroom.
Well, I don't think it's in the article for a reason, but enlighten us, Jim. How many times you sat in the bath with your laptop?
How many times have I sat in the bath with this?
Yeah, well, I do that as well.
With your computer, right in your hand. You've got access to your emails. How many times in the morning I sit in the bath and I put YouTube Diary of a CEO on here, and I just put it up there and I sit and watch it, Diary of a CEO, and I learn at the same time as utilizing time that I otherwise would have been dead time. It just would have been nothing. So it's a great opportunity to learn. So there is ways that you can adapt. A television in the bathroom. I've got one. It was one of the things I always wanted. So I put a television in the bathroom with speakers at the top, and you've got Fire TV on it as well, so it's easy to just drop into YouTube and have Diary of a CEO on there as well. And you've got your business pages, you've got your red button and stuff like that. So it is an opportunity to actually learn in a different way, although it can't be a permanent home office. But it is some sort of addition to add value to the, I would say, the non-productive cycle, which you can actually now make productive.
Yeah, I think because there's times in your life where you're doing other things and you could multitask basically and be learning.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? At the same time.
I'm a big fan. It always, for me, it came from your car is a mobile
driving and
university.
listening to.
Your car's a mobile university. It is the golden opportunity when you're driving from one place to another to listen to people far more successful than you talk about what they did, how they did it, whether it's on that at that time it was audio tapes for me. Now it's on podcasts for other people as well. So it is a great opportunity to actually utilize in all these unproductive spaces in your life where you could be learning something else at the same time. So if you can do that for a tenant and make these opportunities available for them, it is an opportunity to add added value at a very minimal cost, isn't it?
Yeah, I remember. Do you remember what was the guy you gave me? You gave me CDs. We're talking about 10 years ago, and I used to have them in the car, and that's always been something that you've obviously
Brian
said.
Tracy.
I think it was.
Yeah, Brian Tracy.
Yeah.
When Brian Tracy was at the Century 21 conference in America.
I remember you giving me the CDs, yeah.
Yeah, and all the different other speakers as well. We had CDs, and I made sure I got all these CDs from all the workshops we'd actually attended, and we just stuck them in the car, and you listen to them constantly over and over again, and learning all the way throughout every single day. I mean, it's great to listen to music, but does listening to music make you money? No.
Do you know what? I think people will maybe wonder how would that benefit me? How am I going to learn? And I wouldn't really take that in. Think about that, and that's how I thought about it. Do you know, if you listen to the radio all the time in the car, think how you have memorized all the adverts in between. It's the same thing.
Think how you've memorized all the songs.
Yeah, the songs
and it is repetition. Repetition is the mother of skill. Every single time. The more you do something, the better you become at it, and the better you become at it, the more opportunities you have to monetize that. Again, we're getting into wealth creation show stuff, and actually add value to what you're doing day to day. And again, we come back to the point of readiness. You might not need that information exactly right now at this point in time. But and this goes for people that have tenants as well. This applies to everybody, really. This isn't between tenants, landlords, investors, and all the rest of it. But the more you can give someone the opportunity to actually be able to access information more easily in your property and even outside in the garden, then it makes it more desirable for your tenant overall to basically say yes. There's no an opportunity to say no. No, the property doesn't suit my needs. Excuse me. It ticks every single box you've got. You're taking it, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think that's what this whole article and what we've been speaking about this morning is really to make your rental property more profitable. And the way to do that is obviously these people like the high earner, like consultants and practitioners and things that we spoke about, the hybrid workers. It's making the property appealing to them and making it suitable for them to use as a home and to work from.
They don't want to go back into their work now. They don't want to. They just want to work remotely, and they're quite happy to do consultations over Zoom and over the phone and everything like that as well. I mean, I've got it myself. And somebody says, "Oh, let's meet up," and it's like, let's not. Let's just do a Zoom.
It's so much easier. Yeah, I know.
And it's like, because I just think, how productive is my time then, and how efficient that is. Me saving all that time of having to travel somewhere and sit down with someone. And to me, I know people say, "Oh, it's great to be face to face." It's all very well, but if your time's very limited and you need to be more productive, that's the way you have to use it. And if you can do that and allow that, especially have to have good broadband connection for streaming as well in a property, it's definitely going to add value to what you're doing. Boosters, I mean, you're getting boosters for 20 quid. You can just stick a booster onto your existing broadband connection that's in the property and actually provide that as well. It depends what you want to do and what sort of market you're actually aiming for in terms of the rental market. If you've got a really high quality property, then definitely, if you're in a professional, definitely your professionals is your market, then that's what you want to do. If you're doing serviced accommodation, that's definitely what you're wanting to do as well. You're wanting, because serviced accommodation is all about really good margins and it's all about an experience more than a day-to-day living. It's about an experience for somebody in serviced accommodation. So you want to give them the best experience possible, and you don't want to give them any reason to say that the Wi-Fi was poor or this wasn't right or I didn't have anywhere to to plug in for charge my. I mean, simple things like that. I didn't have anywhere to plug my phone in to charge. None of the sockets had USB in them. And how simple is that? Just to change your existing sockets to a USB one as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And I think just to touch on what you said there about the meeting and face-to-face thing, and obviously the advantages of Zoom or Teams or whatever you just choose to use nowadays. I mean, there's so many. I mean, Jim, you'll have a lot, and I've got a lot of people that we work with, investors, landlords, and things. And we've met through Zoom, but never in person.
Yeah.
But we've got that relationship. We look after their investments and things. And I mean, there is certain appointments and things where I have to go and see the property and things, obviously. But there's a lot of landlord investors that don't even live in the area that I work with, and it's all done like this.
Yeah. And that's why it's probably essential to have a proper good connection in a property, especially a rental property, because it allows other people to do that as well. Especially for the professionals that have that they're only there for a certain amount of contracts. I mean, University of St Andrews is a classic example. You know, they're only there for maybe a 2-year, 3-year contract. They don't want the entry and exit costs of buying a house, because that's prohibitive in terms of. And everybody says, oh, it's no worth renting because it's just dead money. It's not. It's actually saves you a fortune because you don't know what the market's going to be like in about 3 years' time. Therefore, if the market does take a dip, you're having to take that hit as well because you bought the property, because you're definitely needing to get rid of it after 3 years as an owner. So it is the entry costs, it is the exit costs involved in that, and then it is the in-between about having to constantly maintain the property as well, when in actual fact, if you're renting, you've got somebody else looking after for you as well. So there's huge advantages to play to that market in the right areas with the right type of properties. What about when it comes down to the other end of the market, where it's lower rental values? What would you suggest that, one or two things that somebody could do potentially to a property which wouldn't be a significant cost, but it actually would be a very attractive return?
I mean, there's lots of things you could do. I think, like obviously, people might be watching this and thinking, "Oh, this is all kind of geared to, like you say, the higher end and the bigger end, the higher value and the other end of the market." But the lower end, there's so much things you could do to make living space and things so much better. And in a similar way that we've spoke about today, making living spaces more functional for maybe like a family unit, which is obviously going to be, do you know what I mean, like the kitchen spaces and things and the living room spaces. Do you know, you could split a living room space up and have that as a lounge and a diner. Do you know what I mean? Things like that. I mean, that's not going to be an expensive change to the property.
It's that fold-up table on the wall, isn't it?
Yeah,
and it is that potentially just that fold-up chair as well that could possibly go with it as well. And just to add that is that, I mean, it sounds daft, but even when you get these, you get the tables that fold down and the chairs go in between the tables.
Yeah, it's like, used to have one of them.
I know, but it's like, there you go. There's a mobile,
the modern version.
There's a mobile workstation for you.
But you get the modern versions of them, and they're actually quite trendy, and they've got like chairs and stools, and it all just fold back into one thing.
But when you think about it, it's just for the. I mean, we're talking about lower value properties, but we're not talking about properties which aren't fit for purpose. No. We're talking about properties who are actually have a lower rent on them. Yeah. So there may be the 2-bedroom flats in Leavenmouth, possibly the 2-bedroom properties in Glenrothes or Kirkcaldy. We're not talking about East Neuk, and we're not talking about St Andrews because they're higher value. What we're talking about is lower end in terms of rent level. So how can you affordably you can't justify a £20,000, garden room out the back. It's just no possible because that's almost the price of the flat. So you've got to think as we said, inside the box. You've got to think about where's all the space utilization things that you can actually use, and it is there a cupboard under the stairs where it could actually be utilised? Is there a big walk-in cupboard that could actually be utilised? Is there a box room that's never used for anything else? Is there a big hallway that you could be utilised somewhere? Can you put fold-down tables in there, or is there a kitchen you could utilise? Is there an opportunity to put proper Wi-Fi all the way around so you can get proper streaming all the way around as well? And especially, as I said, is it worth actually considering putting a wee mobile phone holder in the bathroom?
I think it's
actually so watch the mobile phone while they're sitting in the bath, or while they're shaving or anything like that.
Yeah, it's so important to demonstrate on the listing and have your agent be aware, or have your agent make you aware. Do you know what I mean? If you've got a really good agent, they'll say, like, this is going to appeal to somebody. This area here could be utilised as this, and we'll put that in the listing and make sure that when we're doing viewings, we point that out to people, but they already know that by looking at the
making sure in every room at least one of the sockets has double USBs in them, as well as the actual electrical socket.
And I mean, you get these sockets with a USB. You get them in B&Q for £10 or £12 at the most, probably. Do you know what I mean? And these simple wee things will be really appealing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the way to do it. There's a lot more cost-effective options to do for lower rental value properties, but then you've got the other end of the spectrum, and then you've got the mid-market section as well, all at the same time. As Jeanette said the other now, you know, she's saying clean it, make sure it's spotless, fresh paint, clean carpets, garden tidy. If you could walk in to a property and you think, yeah, I would live here, then that's ready for a tenant. If you walk into a property and say, I wouldn't see myself living here because I don't, because you feel it's dirty, or it's just no cleaned properly, then guess what your tenant's going to do when they walk in the door as well. So that's probably one of the biggest things. Sarah Beanie is probably one of the people that said the most prolific thing that actually sticks with me for a long time. She actually said, if you've fallen out of love with your property, nobody's going to rent it from you.
Yeah, nobody else.
Because I'll tell you, everything that you do because you've fallen out of it, will not be the right thing, and the tenant that you're actually trying to either well, for want of a better phrase, sell it to, because you're to get to rent. We'll see the same things that you see as put you off. So you need to love your property. You need to want to live there. You need to think, I could live there if it was the choice I had. And I would like it like that. And then that's why you will get a tenant. That's what will keep your occupancy rate high as well. And that's what will keep your return high as well. And that's what will keep tenants happy as well. And that's what will give you a sterling reputation in terms of what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's amazing how that initial, I mean, like you say, we've seen it time and time again, Jim. If you are handing over a property and it just looks like, well, here you go, I'm not really too bothered. Oh, I've not done that, I've not done this, it's not finished properly, it looks a bit, maybe it needs cleaned, or do you mean you're not bothered, the tenant's not going to bother, they're not going to stay long, like you say, it's going to have an effect on your occupancy rate, and then it'll have a reflection as you as a landlord or an investor about what kind of product you're putting out there. And basically,
I can count on my hand, maybe, the times I've been into a property and the person's gone, right, I'm ready to rent it, and I'm like, really?
No, you're not.
It's like, not. And maybe you think you're ready to rent it, but I'm certainly not taking it on. Because I tell you what, it's a blooming bomb site. It's like, I didn't care what your standard of living is, but it's certainly not mine. And it certainly won't be the tenants either. So, you just avoid these people, don't you? But they're very few and far between. It's just that they don't understand. People just don't
know how
what they may be. And the thing is, there's like, the classic example I'll say to them is, well, would you move in here yourself? And they're like, not. And I'm like, but why do you think anybody else would then?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's wrap up there. What's the final piece of advice you can give someone then?
Yeah, I think what today's show in this article, if you have a good read of it, it's ways and means to have your property, increase your property's value, increase its saleability, in essence, if it's a rental or a sale even, and make it more appealing to that working professional and things as well. I mean, point out all these points and areas in the property that are going to work in your advantage to finding the right tenant and having a long-term let, basically.
Yeah. Don't miss out, I would say, on hiring consultants, but also don't miss out on company lets as well. Rentals are in shortage of supply just now, so anybody's considering any area. So even though you think, well, these type of people wouldn't rent my property in this area, they will, because if it's beautiful, and that's how I started. I just made the interiors absolutely amazing that people went, I can't believe this is like this. I mean, I would written this place off from the outside, but I tell you what, inside's gorgeous. And every single time, my occupancy rate was really, really high. about 99.9% occupancy rate. So I think that's the most important thing about giving people what they want in a cost-effective manner to make it have the right return. And that's us. Listen, guys, tune in to the Wealth Creation Show on Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock.
9 a.m.
Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock. Obviously, we've got the Queen's funeral on the Monday. So tune in Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock. We're going to be talking about wealth management. Until then, goodbye from us.